Many people go to Hollywood. I've never been.
She reached many friendship people there.
Okay, good. My husband's grandfather and grandmother were in the movies in the 1940s and 1950s. His grandfather he acted in cowboy movies, you know. Yeah, 1940s and 1950s, yeah. Yeah, so they lived in Hollywood always, and my husband was born there, but I've never seen it. I've never gone. I don't care for Los Angeles in general. Too many traffic, too many cars. You know, the traffic is terrible. You can take an hour to get 2 miles in that place if it's.
Same as Bangkok.
But they will also shoot you there in Los Angeles. If, you know, there's something, yeah. And certain parts are very dangerous. Like, yeah, we have a big problem with guns in the United States. And so sometimes when the traffic is bad and people get angry, pull out a gun and shoot the person next to them. And then it just takes longer because they have to get police and an ambulance. I lived in Northern Virginia, and I went to nursing school in Baltimore. So the trip was 50 miles, 50 miles. Sometimes it would take me 2.5 hours one way. You know, understanding that on our highways, the speed limit is 60 miles an hour. I should have been there long before an hour was up, but it would take me 2.5 hours because the cars, it was so slow that on the way home, I would take my nursing books and I would read in the car while I'm driving. We would be stopped for so long, I could actually study. It's crazy. Bangkok, I've seen bad traffic, but in the US, it stretches for miles and miles on the highways. And it's on the highways where everything's supposed to go really fast. It's completely stopped. Too many cars, that's the problem. No, but we don't have a good system. We don't have good public transportation. I live in the country. I cannot get a bus or a subway or metro. It's not there. It's not there. In order to get to the subway, the underground, I have to drive 26 miles. So it's a long, long way. And usually wherever I'm going, I just drive there because it's so much quicker. If I go to the subway, then I have to wait for the train and da 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 da. Might as well just drive where I'm going. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about today? No? Well, I think we'll hold off.
Say about kick bucket. What did you say?
Oh, kick the bucket?
I know.
Yeah.
I know kick the bucket, but.
Oh, the bucket list?
What did you say? You don't say about kick the bucket, but you say another.
I said bucket list, which means a list of things you want to do before you die.
You say bucket list.
Bucket list,
The thing
yeah.
before you die.
Yes. And not right before you die, but in your lifetime, really. If I say, okay, I want to experience, before I die, I want to experience 10 things. You know, that would be a bucket list. I might not be able to do them, you know. I'd like to go to Tibet. I'd like to go to Turkey. Some people would like to parachute or, I don't know, learn to swim.
B-U-C-K-E-T-L-S.
Mm-hmm. That's bucket list, a list of things I want to do before I die.
The text that write on for the interesting person, that is one is Angkor Wat.
Angkor Wat.
Angkor Wat. See Angkor Wat before that.
I went to Angkor Wat, but unfortunately I had pneumonia. So I saw it one time and then I was too sick to come out of the hotel room. So I saw the inside of a hotel room in Siem Reap after that long trip. But I had been taking care of, I'm a nurse, and I'd been taking care of patients and people were coughing in my face. And for some reason, nobody had masks, so I couldn't protect myself. So I got influenza.
What is influenza?
What is influenza? It's a virus, which means there's no good medicine for it. Antibiotics don't work, and it is in your lungs. And if you only have influenza, you will hurt everywhere, absolutely everywhere. People say their hair hurt. It's a sensation in your scalp about this pain. And you cough, you have high fever, sore throat sometimes, but when it gets really bad, it kills people sometimes. When it gets really bad, it becomes pneumonia. And that's when fluid fills your lungs, water fills your lungs, and the tissue in your lungs, the skin in your lungs, gets thick from absorbing the fluid, and so it can no longer work to let you breathe. So that's how people die from it. Fluid? Fluid, and it means liquid.
Fluid.
Mm-hmm. Like water is a fluid, tea is a fluid, coffee is a fluid. Yeah, this used in medicine a lot.
What is the disease name? Disease name?
Influenza, also known as flu.
Say the influenza. Yes.
It's also called flu.
Yes.
They make a vaccine every year that you can take, different vaccine. So what they do, they actually see what made people sick in Hong Kong each year, and they know that it will have reached the United States by next year. So they have about 6 months to develop a new injection for it. This year, it didn't work. So we're having terrible epidemics of influenza right now in certain places.
Pneumonia and influenza is
Oh, okay, so pneumonia comes from various kinds of diseases, but what happens is you may start out with just coughing and sneezing, but then your lungs become affected by this, whatever disease it is. Can be influenza, can be some other things, but the fluid starts to fill your lungs. So normally there's not fluid in your lungs. And the skin, the tissue of the lungs is very thin, and oxygen goes across it into the bloodstream. And that's how your body gets air, in the bloodstream. But when those tissues get wet and they swell up, they become too thick to do that, and your blood doesn't get the oxygen it's supposed to get. So you're like all the time. Yeah. And as the fluid fills up, you feel like you're drowning. Terrible disease. Terrible disease. When people get old and they forget how to swallow, so they take a drink of water and their throat doesn't work right, it goes into their lungs. The bacteria that water takes with it into the lungs can cause pneumonia too. So, and that kills a lot of older people. All right, well, that's a happy ending here. So we'll see you on Monday. Mr. Tim will be back to teach your class. And for the rest of you, we'll be reading this. So if you want to look ahead and look up some of the words, please do. That's the best way. You're welcome to take this book home and take a look at it. It's a pretty difficult book, but if you always read easy things, you're never going to learn. So my suggestion is if you take something home to read, you come to a word you don't understand, look it up and write it down, and then you'll remember it. Yeah.
Have a nice weekend.
Thanks, you too.